all those measurements are dependent upon where we measure them from. And that has to do with relativity. That there are no absolute coordinates. There are only relative coordinates from here to there. The only way we can measure there is if we're measuring from here. If we measure from a different here, then the measurement to there is going to be different. And then and now is the same kind of a concept. And, of course, we can measure it in various ways. There are all kinds of meters. The smallest measurement of time is an attosecond, which is 1/billionth of a second. And the smallest event that we have been able to measure in time is a quantum process. And the shortest quantum process that we've been able to measure is 12 attoseconds. There may be smaller ones, but that's the closest that we've been able to get to it.
Okay, I got to stop you here. How have we measured it? Because I know the human reaction time isn't that fast.
I do not know the technology they use to do it.
Okay. I was just wondering, I'm sitting here going, I used to have the digital watch and you click the button to see how fast you could get it to stop. Like a little kid. Anyways.
Yes, I'm not a technician, and I'm not an engineer. And so sometimes this is something that in physics, the general public isn't necessarily aware, that there are all kinds of fields of physics. I mean, we have material physicists, we have particle physicists, we have theoretical physicists, we have astrophysicists, we actually have biophysicists, geophysicists, on and on and on. And each one of these physicists are almost completely ignorant about the details of the other division of physics. So it's like Einstein, when he predicted that, according to his relativity field and his understanding of space-time, that we were going to be able to detect a 1.75 degree variation in starlight that was coming around a solar eclipse, as opposed to the same photograph or a photograph of that same area of sky without the solar disk present, which proved his theory. It was one of the proofs, the experimental predictions, that Einstein couldn't tell you very much about the telescope that they used. He knew the basic principles. He couldn't tell you who ground the lenses or how the lenses had to be ground or what the precision of the mirrors inside were. He couldn't do much about telling you about the photographic equipment that the engineering team used. He understood the basics of photography. Einstein never conducted a single experiment himself. He was pure theory. He was purely a theoretician. So it's not uncommon for someone like myself to have certain results that have been found by engineers and technicians, but not necessarily know the exact procedure that they followed.
I understand. I mean, I know how this, even simplifying things, I don't do audio video editing. I suck at it. So I can bring it back to my level, but not knowing everything. So, cool. I wanted to, I guess now we have homework for later. I'll probably be giving people more homework in a minute.
Well, it was a good question to ask, Jim, because it allows us to talk about that so that the listeners get a little bit more educated in what's going on and a little bit more realistic in their expectations. One of the qualities that made Nikola Tesla the incredible man that he was that he was not only a theorist, but he was also an engineer. he could develop the theory and then build the devices that he theorized. And that's a very rare combination. It really is.
Speaking of shocking yourself, we were talking about that off air. No, I'm sure he did it a few times.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Of course, he probably knew better too, but he just had to do it, make sure his thought was correct. Instant testing of the theory.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should do this before I forget again, because my guest tonight is Thomas-p-Fusco, author behind The Cosmic Veil. Where was my next question at? So, a few weeks ago, I can't remember when it was, probably a month ago now, I started talking about standards in the paranormal. Just kind of shift way gears here. So, I know you're not a personal investigator, but what kind of things would you like to see as a base? I mean, we're talking basement level standards for people to start incorporating or start generating, changing their mind about how they're doing things.
What needs to be done is that the small, and I mean a very small, handful of paranormal investigative teams that are serious about advancing the understanding, the scientific understanding of what's going on in the paranormal, of really trying to understand and discover and establish what I call paranormal mechanics, need to rally around somebody, for example, like David Roundtree, who does the science, who is a theorist and an engineer, as well as a paranormal investigator, and to start reproducing his experiments. And it helps to have a theoretical foundation that my work provides, as David Roundtree calls my work a roadmap, the first roadmap that we have to the paranormal. And to understand that the key to doing this is repeatability, is repetition, that this team in this state invested this place using the same methods and got the same results. And this team over there did the same thing, and this team over there did the same thing, and so on and so forth. So we actually build an actual database of scientifically meaningful evidence because it was collected in a scientifically meaningful way with a scientifically designed set of experiments that were, created in the correct way according to the strict scientific method, and accumulate this body of repeatable evidence. And that's what needs to be done to help bring the field to the next level. Everybody else in the paranormal community has absolutely no motivation to do this. And so there's no way that they're going to change. All they have to do is bring in an EMF meter, and if it spikes, they say, well, gee, that's a ghost. And that's enough for them. That fulfills all of their satisfaction. They can bring a psychic in and say, oh, I talked with your dead Aunt Mary. And that is all they need to get their satisfaction. They can get better at buying and applying scientifically designed instruments to catch more and better EVPs, which really isn't conducting science. As I say, that's just, somebody running around a house with a highly sophisticated piece of electronics equipment is not conducting science. And they can collect more EVPs and better EVPs, and that's enough for them. They're satisfied with that, and so on and so forth. So essentially what you're looking at is a situation where a core of investigators has to develop the science of it sufficiently so it gets the attention of the general public, which, as you know, I say is the final judge. And then when the general public looks at this, and they will begin to say, these are the people who are doing something mainstream that I can actually put confidence in and kind of wrap my integrity around, so to speak. And then the rest of the community will become the fringe. They'll become the snake oil salesman of modern medicine, so to speak. And then they'll realize, hey, if we want to stay relevant, we have to follow the leader. And we're assuming, of course, at a time that the TV fad is going to fade and the leader is no longer going to be the plumbers. And then that's when everything is going to change. That whole portion of that paranormal community, they're not going to be part of the change. It's just not going to happen. There's no reason for them to be involved in it.
I like the comparison to the medical field, because there for a while, you could buy anything. It was a cure for anything. If you could put a label on it, you could sell it and make it a cure for something.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you would go to the barber, you know, back in the late 1800s, you would go to your local barber who would attach leeches to you, would bleed you, would pull teeth, and there was no standard. So it was the American Medical Association that eventually put together the standard. It was scientifically based, and it was only after that that the general public accepted and embraced the AMA as the standard of the field. That's when everybody else became fringe, and they either needed to fall in the line or get the hell out of the field. And this is what has to happen here. Just the fact that a bunch of doctors got together and established the AMA didn't mean squat. In itself, it didn't mean anything. It was when the general public accepted that as the standard. That's what made the change.
Yeah, it took time, and it took a lot of work and effort to put something together. And then after even the American Medical Association, they've been researching development in all sorts of different areas. So there's hope, but it's not real. It's kind of flickering at the end of the tunnel.
Well, for this, and it will eventually come to pass. Ultimately, science is going to win this battle. But in the interim, Jim, in all honesty, the vast majority of the paranormal community has no motive to want to adhere to a scientific process. And, the effort to try to come up with the answers scientifically for the paranormal. Most of them don't even care about the answers. All they care about is what they're getting out of it now. And they don't need science to do that. And I'm not trying to speak condescendingly.
But I will.
It's just the way it is. Part of what they do trades on the mystique of the paranormal, especially the TV entertainers. If you remove the mystique of it, these guys are out of a job. They're out of business. Like I say, there's a certain percentage of Bigfoot researchers who pray every night that no one ever, ever, ever drags a body in. Because as soon as somebody drags a Bigfoot body in, that's the end. The people who own the body will be the experts, and overnight these people will turn into nobody. No one will ever remember their name again. No more radio interviews, no more TV shows, no more convention appearances, no more book sales. They're done. Because they trade on the fact that Bigfoot is a mystery. Once the mystery is solved, they're out of business.
You're totally right about all that. It's just fascinating to me to put it out there yet again. I enjoy making people think provocatively. I mean, it's easy to say we need standards, but to have it laid out there in a more eloquent form than I deliver it gives me even more hope that I hope somebody else out there is thinking about it besides the two of us tonight. So that's my hope.
And what allows me to do this, Jim, is not only the very solid theoretical model that I have that extends beyond paranormal phenomena to include